She was young. She was beautiful. She was desired by powerful men. And she said no. Not because she hated the world. Not because she feared suffering. But because she had already given her heart to Christ. When a Roman governor tried to force her into marriage, she refused. When he threatened her, she refused. When he tortured her, she still refused. This is the story of Saint Agatha of Sicily, the virgin who defied an empire in the honor of her birth. Each wishes to call her their own. And who can blame them? To be known as the birthplace of such courage would be a distinction any city would treasure. But the greater honor is not to the city that first saw her cradle. It belongs to those who imitate her virtues. For while cities may dispute where she was born, heaven knows where she belongs. What history agrees upon is this: Agatha received the crown of martyrdom at Catania during the persecution of Decius, in the year of our Lord 251. The empire was hostile. Christianity was outlawed. Refusal to sacrifice to the Roman gods could cost a person everything: property, freedom, even life. Agatha was no obscure peasant girl hiding in the shadows. She was born into wealth, into honor, into a family of high standing. She possessed beauty, status, and inheritance, the kind of advantages that secured comfort and protection in Roman society. But from her earliest years, she made a radical decision. She consecrated herself to God. This vow was not symbolic. It was not casual. It was a lifelong offering of her body and soul, and that vow would be tested. Agatha did not grow up sheltered from temptation. On the contrary, she faced many assaults upon her chastity, persistent proposals, social pressure, and the expectations placed upon a young woman of wealth and beauty. She triumphed over them all. Her strength was not loud or dramatic. It was steady, quiet, unyielding. But then, her faith collided with power. Quintianus, a man of consular dignity, influential, ambitious, and accustomed to control, set his eyes on Agatha. He was driven by two desires: lust for her beauty and greed for her estate. To him, she was not a consecrated soul. She was a prize. Under ordinary circumstances, a governor might not easily coerce a noblewoman of standing. But these were not ordinary times. The emperor had issued an edict against Christians. Suddenly, faith became a crime. Quintianus saw opportunity. What he could not obtain by persuasion, he would attempt to seize through persecution. He imagined his plan simple: accuse her as a Christian under the emperor's decree, threaten her with punishment, and force her into submission. With one accusation, he believed he could conquer both her body and her inheritance. But he misjudged her. He saw a young woman. He did not see a warrior of faith. Agatha had already chosen her allegiance. She had already surrendered her will to God. No imperial edict could undo that consecration. The stage was set not merely for a legal confrontation, but for a spiritual battle between worldly authority and sacred conviction. On one side stood a governor backed by imperial law. On the other stood a young woman backed by her vow. History would remember which authority proved stronger. Agatha's story reminds us that persecution often disguises itself as power. That greed and lust frequently hide behind legal language. That those who appear defenseless may, in truth, be unconquerable. Palermo and Catania may dispute her birthplace, but the real question is not where she was born. It is where we stand. Do we belong to the world that uses power to dominate, or to the kingdom that uses weakness to overcome? Agatha's life invites us to strive, not merely to honor her memory, but to become her fellow citizens in heaven. When Saint Agatha of Sicily was finally seized, the confrontation she had long foreseen became reality. She was apprehended and brought before the governor at Catania, the very place where her faith would be tested and her glory sealed. In that moment, she understood something profound. She was no longer merely resisting unwanted attention. She was standing in the hands of persecutors, and so she prayed. Not a dramatic speech, not a cry of despair, but a surrender. Jesus Christ, Lord of all things, you see my heart. You know my desire. Possess alone all that I am. I am your sheep, make me worthy to overcome the devil. This was not the prayer of someone hoping to escape suffering. It was the prayer of someone preparing to endure it. As she was led away, she wept not from fear of pain, but from the weight of the battle ahead. Step by step, she begged heaven for courage. Every footfall became an act of trust, every breath a plea for strength. Quintianus had no intention of granting her an honorable trial. He devised something far more cruel. Instead of immediate torture, he ordered that Agatha be placed under the custody of Aphrodisia, a woman notorious for her corruption. Aphrodisia, along with her 6 daughters, operated a house of prostitution. It was a place designed not merely to break the body, but to stain the soul. Quintianus believed this would succeed where threats had failed. If fear could not bend her, shame would. If violence could not conquer her, temptation would. For 30 days, Agatha endured what she found more terrible than physical torture. Relentless assaults against her purity, persuasion, mockery, psychological pressure, strategies crafted to weaken her resolve. The environment was meant to suffocate her virtue, but it did not. What sustained her was not pride, not stubbornness, not personal strength. It was prayer. Day and night, she lifted her heart to God with sighs and tears. Her battle was not against flesh and blood. It was against despair, against doubt, against the whisper that compromise would be easier. But she had already given herself away to Christ, and a heart that belongs entirely to God cannot be possessed by corruption. A full month passed, 30 days of humiliation, 30 days of temptation, 30 days of spiritual warfare. And when Quintianus received word that she remained unshaken, he was astonished. He had expected surrender. He received constancy. He ordered her, brought before him once again. This time, there was no pretense. The confrontation would be direct. In her first interrogation, Agatha spoke with clarity that stunned her accusers. To be a servant of Jesus Christ, she declared, was the most illustrious nobility and the truest freedom. What a reversal of Roman values. Rome measured nobility by lineage and power. Agatha measured it by belonging to Christ. Rome defined freedom as the ability to command others. Agatha defined it as the ability to remain faithful under pressure. Te gobernor, clothed in authority, sat in judgment. Yet it was the young virgin, bound and accused, who spoke like royalty. In that courtroom, chains did not make her small. They revealed her greatness. For Agatha understood a truth the empire could not comprehend. A soul anchored in God cannot be enslaved, not by lust, not by fear, not even by death. And so the stage was set for the next and more terrible chapter of her martyrdom, where her courage would be tested not only by temptation, but by torment. But already, she had proven something unforgettable. They could confine her body, they could surround her with corruption, they could threaten her life, but they could not touch her freedom. The young Saint Agatha of Sicily had already shown an unshakable spirit, and now her faith was about to be tested like never before. Her defiance of earthly power offended the governor, Quintianus, who had expected obedience, submission, and fear. But Agatha's heart was not hers to yield. It belonged entirely to Christ. Infuriated by her resolute answers, Quintianus gave the command. She was to be buffeted and led to prison. Yet Agatha did not enter her confinement with fear or despair. Instead, she walked with courage, a joyful heart, and a serene mind, recommending her coming trials to God as one might entrust a precious secret to a faithful friend. The following day, she was summoned once again to the tribunal. The governor hoped that repeated interrogation would break her will, but Agatha answered with the same unwavering constancy. Jesus Christ is my life and my salvation. Her words were simple, yet they cut through the arrogance and cruelty around her, revealing a truth far greater than any power the governor could wield. Enraged by her steadfastness, Quintianus ordered the ultimate form of punishment. She was stretched upon the rack, a device of unimaginable torment. Traditionally, this was accompanied by stripes, tearing of the sides with iron hooks, and burning with torches or matches, tortures designed to crush both body and spirit. But Agatha did not cower. She endured every pain with a courage that bewildered her persecutors. Seeing her cheerfulness amidst suffering, the governor's fury intensified, and he commanded an even more personal cruelty. Her breasts were to be tortured and then cut off. It was a humiliation meant to break her entirely, a cruelty meant to silence her devotion. Yet, even in the face of such barbarity, Agatha's spirit blazed. She confronted Quintianus directly, her voice calm, but cutting with moral truth. "Cruel tyrant, do you not blush to torture this part of my body? You that sucked the breasts of a woman yourself." Her words were not just a protest, they were a mirror to the corruption of power, a reminder that no human authority could override the divine law written upon her heart. The governor, frustrated and humiliated by her courage, remanded her to prison, issuing a severe order. She was to receive neither salves nor food. He sought to starve both her body and spirit, but he underestimated the source of her strength. Agatha had already shown that her power came not from earthly comforts or physical safety, but from an unbreakable union with Christ. This chapter of her life leaves an unforgettable lesson. The body can be bound, beaten, and broken, but the spirit anchored in God cannot be touched. Saint Agatha's faith shone brightest in the darkest hour, proving that true devotion is stronger than tyranny, stronger than fear, stronger than pain. Her story is a testament that courage, faith, and moral strength are the true treasures of life, and that even in suffering, joy and steadfastness are possible when God is at the center. The story of Saint Agatha of Sicily reaches its harrowing and miraculous climax as the young virgin, faithful to Christ, faces the most extreme tortures of her life. Though her body had already endured unimaginable suffering, God himself intervened as her healer. In a vision, the apostle Saint Peter appeared to Agatha, offering comfort, restoring her wounds, and filling the dark, oppressive prison with a heavenly light that no earthly cruelty could diminish. Yet the cruel governor Quintianus remained unmoved. For days after this miraculous healing, he devised an even more horrific punishment. Agatha was rolled naked over live coals, mixed with broken pottery shards, a torment that would have killed any ordinary mortal. But even in this unbearable agony, her spirit remained unbroken. Carried back to her prison, Agatha lifted her eyes to heaven and prayed with serene devotion. "Lord, my Creator, you have ever protected me from the cradle. You have taken from me the love of the world and given me patience to suffer. Receive now my soul." With these words, she surrendered her life peacefully, her soul ascending to the glory she had long embraced. It was not merely a death, but a triumphant victory of faith over cruelty, of divine strength over human cruelty. Saint Agatha's heroism and sanctity were recognized early by the Church. Her name was inserted in the canon of the Mass and appears in the ancient calendar of Carthage dating as far back as the year 530. Both Latin and Greek martyrologies honor her memory, testifying to her enduring impact on the Christian world. Her veneration extended to Rome as well. Around the year 500, Pope Decius built a church on the Aurelian Way in her honor, though it has since fallen to decay. Later, Saint Gregory the Great enriched another church charged of Arian heresy with her relics, which it still preserves. Even Forter Gregory II constructed a celebrated church in 726 under her invocation, which Pope Clement VIII eventually entrusted to the Congregation of Christian Doctrine. Saint Agatha's life and death stand as a radiant example of courage, chastity, and unwavering faith. She reminds us that divine grace can transform suffering into glory and that true devotion transcends even the darkest human trials. Her story has inspired centuries of believers, guiding them toward courage, purity, and unshakable trust in God's providence. The story of Saint Agatha of Sicily did not end with her death. In fact, it continued through her relics and miraculous intercessions, which bore witness to her enduring presence in the Church and among the faithful. Saint Gregory the Great, recognizing the sanctity of her remains, ordered that some of her relics be placed in the church of the monastery of Saint Stephen on the Isle of Capri. Today, Capri allowing devotion to her to flourish far beyond Sicily. Meanwhile, the chief portion of her relics remained in Catania, modern Catania, until the 11th century, when they were carried to Constantinople by a Greek general who had liberated Sicily from the Saracens around the year 1040. These relics were returned to Catania in 1127, and the translation was recorded in detail by Mauritius, then Bishop of Caetana. As preserved by historians, Rossi Piero and Bolle, Saint Agatha's intercession was not only spiritual, but also tangible and protective. The faithful believed and witnessed that the torrent of burning sulfur and stones from Mount Ætna was several times averted from the walls of Catana through her miraculous protection. Her veil, taken from her tomb and carried in procession, was credited with shielding the city from destruction, a vivid symbol of her power and guardianship. Her miraculous influence extended far beyond Sicily. In Malta, where she is honored as the patroness of the island, the people credited her with preserving the island from Turkish invaders in 1551, showing that her protection transcended time and geography. Even today, small portions of her relics are distributed in various places, allowing the faithful around the world to feel a tangible connection to this holy martyr. From volcanic eruptions to invasions, the protection and intercession of Saint Agatha continues to inspire devotion, demonstrating that the impact of a saint's life does not end with their death, but resonates across centuries. The life of Saint Agatha of Sicily offers a profound lesson in the power of purity of intention and total surrender to God. What made her trials in martyrdom truly holy was not only her courage in the face of physical torment, but the inner disposition of her heart and soul entirely detached from worldly desires. Wholly devoted to pleasing God, her sufferings became sacred precisely because they were offered with a heart free from selfish motives. This teaches us an essential truth. Even the smallest crosses, pains, or trials we endure can become extraordinary offerings to God when faced with the right intention. Life presents us with countless opportunities for this. Sometimes it is a bodily ache, sometimes a mental or emotional burden. At other times, a disappointment, an insult, or a humble rebuke. These moments are often tests of our heart's alignment with God, and Saint Agatha's example reminds us that the value of suffering depends not on its magnitude, but on the purity of our acceptance. It is easy to endure visible trials when others are watching, to appear patient in public, or to take pride in enduring great hardships. But true sanctity lies in how we bear the small, unseen trials, the secret irritations, the personal disappointments, the tiny inconveniences that no one else notices. If we shrink from these, become fretful, or secretly delight in what others see as great, then our souls are not yet fully surrendered. True devotion, like that of Saint Agatha, requires us to die to self, to be hidden from the eyes of the world and seek only the pleasure of God in all things, great and small. Saint Agatha's life is a call to all of us. Our patience, humility, and even the quiet endurance of daily trials can be transformed into a holy offering when done with the intention of pleasing God alone. Every small act, every tiny cross, becomes a living testimony of faith, a reflection of divine love, and a participation in the mystery of Christ's own sacrifice. We often profess a readiness to die for Christ, to offer our lives in service to God. Yet the reality of everyday trials often reveals how far we fall short. The smallest cross, the slightest humiliation, can feel unbearable. This is where the life and example of Saint Agatha teach us the profound beauty of true Christian sacrifice. Imagine a soul that suffers in silence, offering every trial to God without seeking human praise, recognition, or sympathy. Such a soul desires no witness but God Himself, trusting that every hardship is sent with divine purpose. It is a humility that shuns superiority and honors, a modesty that quietly bears insults or difficulties, and a love that finds comfort only in God, not in worldly consolation or acknowledgement. This interior simplicity and purity of heart is the highest form of devotion. It transforms suffering into spiritual triumph. It is not the dramatic or visible sacrifices that perfect the soul, but the hidden victories over self-love, the patient endurance of small trials, and the quiet rejection of pride. In this, the soul imitates Saint Agatha's words, "Possess alone all that I am." Every act of patience, every moment of humility becomes a holy offering, a silent hymn of love and surrender to Christ. Saint Agatha shows us that perfection is found not in grandeur, but in the hidden, uncelebrated victories of the heart. True devotion is a life lived in secret union with God, a life in which the soul finds joy not in human applause, but in being wholly His. Her example reminds us that even the smallest act of faithful endurance, done purely for God, carries eternal value. As we reflect on the life of Saint Agatha, we are reminded that true holiness is often found not in grand gestures or worldly recognition, but in the quiet, steadfast surrender of the heart to God. Her courage in the face of persecution, her unwavering fidelity to Christ, and her perfect purity of intention show us that even the smallest trials, endured with patience and love, can become offerings that reach heaven itself. Saint Agatha teaches us that the greatest victories are often invisible to humanize the patient acceptance of suffering, the silent endurance of humiliation, the refusal to let pride or self-interest claim even a moment of our hearts. Each act of humility, each sacrifice offered in secret, is a testament of love that God treasures infinitely. She reminds us that to be truly devoted is to live hidden with God, to trust in His providence, and to surrender completely to His will. May her example inspire us to embrace our own crosses with courage, to love in secrecy, to serve without seeking reward, and to let God be the sole witness of our devotion. In following her path, we too can whisper with Saint Agatha, "Possess alone all that I am." If her story touched your heart, and if you long to discover more lives of extraordinary faith and courage, subscribe to Stories of the Saints. Journey with us through the lives of those who've walked faithfully with God, whose courage, purity, and devotion continue to illuminate the path for all who seek Him. Let us learn, be inspired, and be transformed together by the power of these holy lives.